back to another episode of FPL Fanzone. My name's Nick, and in today's episode we're going to look at the Gameweek 3 final thoughts. That's going to include transfer deadline day, what's happened in the Premier League, how that's going to impact your teams and potential transfers moving forward. We're going to look at some of the questions that have been posed over the week around transfers. Should they wildcard? We're going to look at a couple of team reviews as well. Looking at options instead of wildcarding, can it be fixed with free transfers or with just a -4? We're going to look at the I Wildcard team for the week for those that have already pressed the button, and then also we're going to look at the captaincy options for Game Week 3, and then finally finishing up with my team, what I'm thinking about before the deadline, which is coming up. If you have watched this video and have watched any of others, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and put comments below as you go through if there's anything you think of, any questions that you want covered in future episodes. So without further ado, let's get started. So first up, transfer deadline day. Finally, it's over. We can now not worrying about teams buying in. We know teams are now fixed now until January, so we can start to make decisions on who's going to play. There was a couple of interesting moves which I think are really going to impact, have potential impact on FPL teams moving forward. But starting off with goalkeepers, there seemed to be a lot of goalkeeper movement in the Premier League. So Neto joined from Bournemouth to Arsenal on loan. I think he's just cover because Ramsdale went from Arsenal to Southampton, which actually could be a really nice option. I think he's now 4.4 as a goalkeeper, and he'll be first choice at Southampton. Will get lots of saves, so there's a nice option there. We got Turner, who a lot of people just selected as their 4.0, has moved from Nottingham Forest to Crystal Palace. Is he going to be first choice? We still don't know, but again, he will probably be back up there as well, so that's helpful. And that's partially because Sam Johnston has left Crystal Palace and gone to Wolves for a $10 million fee. So again, lots of movements in transfers. I'm guessing most people aren't looking at goalkeeper transfers this week unless you're on a wild card. But in terms of transfer day, certainly a lot of goalkeepers have moved clubs this week. In terms of the defenders, yes, there was a couple of signings. I think Crystal Palace signed a new defender. But what was more interesting for me in terms of FPL was the defenders that didn't move. So Mark Gahey and Trippier being the two main ones, because they were obviously talking about moving one to Newcastle, the other one away to Everton. And neither of those have happened. So hopefully now that gives them a chance to be reintegrated back into their teams. Trippier is a fantastic option moving forward if he can win his place back from Livramento. So certainly some options there to think about, but again, maybe need to give it a couple of weeks to see whether they're back into the teams. In midfield, lots of movement here as well, with Reece Nelson going to Fulham on loan, so following in the likes of Emil Smith-Rowe. So I think there could be a good opportunity for them to partner up there, both Arsenal Academy players, so that again, more options in that Fulham midfield while they've got good fixtures. Ugarte signing for Man United for 50 million. I don't know a huge amount about him, but not entirely sure that he's going to be FPL relevant. And coming from PSG, I think he only had a couple of goals at his time there in League One, so not entirely sure that he's going to be an FPL points machine moving forward. Then you've got James Ward-Prowse falling out of favour with the new manager at West Ham and has now moved on loan to Nottingham Forest. Again, that creates more headache for anyone with Nottingham Forest. I was really keen on and have Elanga on my watch list, but there's just too many options there at the moment. James Ward-Prowse has always been very good because of his free kicks and his routes to goal from that perspective. Then the other two is Sterling moving from Chelsea to Arsenal, adding more headache on that in the midfield section there, with Martinelli, Trossard and Sterling now all fighting for the same place. Could he potentially be cover for Saka on the other side with Reece Nelson moving away on loan? Potentially. So I don't know if Sterling's just going to fall straight into that first team. So certainly a hold now to see what happens. But previously he's had seasons where he would score 17, 18, 20 goals when he was at Man City. So certainly one to keep an eye on if he does fit into that Arsenal squad. And then lastly, just as I check back to see if there was any last minute transfers, I've seen that Chelsea have made their 410th transfer of the season. Obviously not quite that much, but Jadon Sancho has now gone on loan from Man United to Chelsea. And of course this has a huge impact because people are already struggling with Nkunku, with rotation risks. Now Madueke, again, didn't play in Game Week 1, got a hat-trick in Game Week 2. Now they're adding Jadon Sancho to that list of midfielders. It's just such a difficult spot at the moment for Chelsea with so many players. It's for me, they're very much in a void. You know, even with Cole Palmer, there's still now an element of doubt with so many midfielders whether he's going to continue to get 90 minutes every game. And then up front, Edouard moving from Crystal Palace to Leicester. He's always flattered to deceive. He feels like he's really could get lots of goals, but never quite delivered for Crystal Palace in the way that they hoped. Moving to Leicester, obviously they've got an ageing Vardy in his last season. They've got Patson Daka, who's currently out at the moment. So I feel like that could be a good move for Leicester moving forward, but not one that I'll be looking to rush to get into my team. The interesting one in the forwards is actually Ivan Toney leaving Brentford. And this actually makes me really interested in Umbremo, who is the 7 million midfielder for Brentford. He will now be the penalty taker, which gives him more routes to goal. He is a midfielder as well, but he will now be their main man in attack. And when Brentford was out when Ivan Toney, was out last season, when he had his suspension, Umbremo was a really good option. Now they've got a tough couple of fixtures coming up, but after that, I think from Game Week 6 it gets a little bit easier. So Umbremo is certainly on my watch list now that Toney has left, as he'll be the main man there for Brentford. But let me know, guys, was there anyone that your team signed that you think is going to be a good option going into the FPL in the upcoming weeks? So is there anyone that I've missed? Let me know in the comments below and I'll certainly take a look. Moving on to questions from some of the viewers of the channel. First and foremost, thank you for the interaction. It really helps the channel if you're putting these questions below. It allows me to create more content and give you my thoughts on some of the dilemmas that you're facing in your team. The first up was, the question was, what's your thoughts on De Bruyne if I cannot afford Haaland? Now, I really like De Bruyne as a pick. Originally, at the start of the season, I was waiting for Foden to come back. And while he got 45 minutes in Game Week 1, he got 0 minutes in Game Week 2 due to illness. Pep Guardiola has come out again and said that he's still not well. So De Bruyne, having played 90 minutes in the first 2 games, looks like a really, really good option. His statistics are really strong at the moment with, I think, 0.93 expected goal involvement across the 2 games. Already has a goal, already has an assist. Erling Haaland is looking on fire at the moment, so they've always had a really good relationship. So is De Bruyne a good option? Yes, right now. The challenge being obviously Pep Roulette. Taking into consideration, though, that Alvarez has left, which is obviously one less competition in that spot, and Foden is currently ill. I think he's a mainstay in that team for now. But after the international break, and then coming back with Champions League and European football, there's certainly going to be a lot more rotation in that team. So as a short-term pick, yes, Kevin De Bruyne, fantastic option. There's some good fixtures there for Man City before they get to the Arsenal-Newcastle games in Game Week 5 and 6. So as a short-term pick, certainly. Would I want the headache moving forward longer term? Potentially not. Next up, the question on everyone's lip is Haaland now essential? He's got a hat-trick in Game Week 2 against Ipswich. And my answer to this is no. I don't have him in my team. So obviously that's a decision that I've already made. If you look at the AI models and predicted points, Haaland is the person expected to get the most points, but also he is significantly the most expensive player. Right now, over 2 game weeks, Mohamed Salah has scored the same number of points across 2 weeks as Erling Haaland. Mo Salah has more routes to points with clean sheets, extra point for the goal as well. So at 2.5 million less, I think Salah is a perfectly good option to cover Haaland in the short term. The challenge being obviously that the other strikers at the moment haven't really found their form. Isak, Watkins, Solanke, Havertz have not, scored a hat-trick, and therefore Haaland looks significantly better option than everyone else. But, between 6 and 7.5 million more than each of those players, you can almost have both of, two of those players for one Erling Haaland. So right now, he's not essential. Would I like him in my team? Of course. Is he a great player? Absolutely. Is he probably the best FPL asset? In terms of points, yes. In terms of points per price, potentially not. So certainly one to if you can fit him into your team without making too many sacrifices, go ahead and do it. But is he essential? No. Next up, again, transfer deadline day causing more headaches. I've got a question. Is with Chiesa joining Liverpool, will this affect Jota's minutes? Now, Arne Slot did come out in his press conference and say that he's unlikely to play this week. He is training with the team, but unless there are injuries or illness, he won't be relying on him this week. But of course, will he potentially impact Jota's minutes moving forward? The answer is yes. That Liverpool attack line of Diaz, Darwin, Jota, Salah, there's only 3 spaces there, and there's now 6 of them. So therefore, there will be rotation, especially with European games coming in as well. So in answer to that question, yes, it will affect Jota's minutes. Will it affect them in this game week? No. And then you've got the international game week international break to give yourself time to think about that moving forward. But hey guys, do you have any other questions? Anything that you'd like me to answer? Feel free to drop them in the comments below and I'll come back to you shortly. Next up, we're going to look at a couple of teams that have reached out and said, hey, should I wildcard? And my initial reaction is, it's only game week 2. We're now coming into game week 3. No, don't wildcard. We don't have enough data yet to understand all of the permutations. We've got an international break coming up next, so there could be potential injuries, there could be rotations after that as well. Of course, there was also the transfer deadline day this week as well, so there was potential of players moving in and out, by the time that is finished, there's not a lot of time left for you to actually make final decisions on that as well. But here are 2 examples of teams, and we'll talk through my thought process on what I would do if this was my team moving forward. So the first question I always ask myself is, where are the problems? And then the next question is, do they all need to be fixed in this game week? Can I get by waiting another game week to use another free transfer? Then I ask myself, why did I pick these players? What was the reason behind picking these players? And is that reason still valid? Have I just been unlucky? Or has the situation changed? And then lastly, can I fix it with a -4? Sometimes look at a -8, but this early in the season, I probably wouldn't look at a -8, especially with people being able to roll transfers. So right now, this is what I do. So the team on the screen here, Henderson in goal. Look, with Sam Johnson just moving away, that's certainly going to secure Henderson's minutes. Crystal Palace have had a really tough start with their defence being broken up, with Anderson being sold off. There was rumours of Gahey leaving as well. He's now staying. And they've now signed a new defender. So I feel like the defence is going to certainly look better moving forward. In defence, Trippier, Gvardiol and Pedro Porro. Now the glaring one there is Trippier. There was lots of rumours of him leaving, going to West Ham and then going to Everton. Neither of those have materialised, so he's now in that Newcastle squad moving forward. As an attacking defender, he's brilliant and has been over the last couple of seasons. He seems to have lost his place at the moment to Livramento, but that may just be because his head was turned due to transfer speculation, and hopefully he comes back into the team. In midfield, you've got Eze, Doku, Diogo Jota, Salah and Nkunku. Now, actually, Eze's just been incredibly unlucky. Could have had 2 or 3 goals already across the first 2 games, had 1 disallowed because the referee blew his whistle too early. He hit the post against West Ham this week. And then missed a chance at the end of the game. So his stats still look really, really good. Yes, his price dropped this week to 6.9 million, but overall don't see any issues there with Eze. Doku is looking really good for minutes at the moment in that Man City midfield. So again, not really a concern. He's playing a lot of minutes. His goal threat is really high. I think he's at 0.39 goal involvements across the two games. So on that basis, by game week 3, he should be getting a return. Just looking at the numbers, he's also looked very attacking on that as well. Just a little bit of lack on that end product. But certainly I wouldn't be worried about having Doku in my team right now. As we move into Champions League and prep roulette season, then yes, there may be an option to move later on. Diogo Jota, Mohamed Salah, both been scoring goals. Both look really, really good, so no concerns there as well. And then Nkunku and fifth midfielder. Yes, he only played 60 minutes or 58 minutes in game week 1. He didn't play at all in game week 2, has played in both of their European qualifying games. He's scored, I think, 4 or 5 goals already for Chelsea, but predominantly all from penalties. Now, actually, in the Premier League, we've still been told that Cole Palmer is the main penalty taker. So, and then, of course, Chelsea have just signed more players. So there is a real minutes risk there with Nkunku at the moment, but he's sitting on the bench, as you can see here. And then up front, you've got Watkins, Darwin, and Isak. And again, looking at that, I would say Darwin is the glaring one there with the minutes risk. He's not really started. He didn't start in game week 1. Then got 18 minutes off the bench in game week 2. Now that may just be due to the fact that he's came back late from the Copa America over the summer break, so therefore didn't get a full pre-season. Also, you've got to take into consideration that Chelsea have quite a stacked front line, so there are that opportunities to give him that extra break, and it may be that he's coming back into the team. But right now, obviously, because of that options with Arne Slot and Jota still looking very good at that number 9, he is still a bit of a challenge. And then on the bench, Matthews, I'm guessing is a 4.0 million goalkeeper. He's not going to play, but that's okay. You've got Harwood Bellis, who's just going to get you your 90 minutes, your 2 points, and that's okay as well. And then Barco, who obviously has now been loaned out to Sevilla in Spain. So right now, where are the problems? You say Trippier, Darwin, and Nkunku and Barco would be immediate issues that I'd want to address in this team. So having 4 of them is a bit of a challenge at the moment. But Barco being the last person on the bench, I just leave him there until you're ready to wildcard. You certainly don't need to worry about that right now. Trippier, you can just swap out for Harwood Bellis right now if you needed to. You're going to get some points there. You can just move Trippier on a free transfer in a future week. So you could go to someone like a Robertson or an Arsenal defender after their tougher fixtures moving forward. And then with Darwin, I know there's some money in the bank here, so you could move to someone like a Mateta or a Havertz on that as well. So realistically, this team could easily be, if you took, for me personally, I would take a -4. I would move Trippier out to either Robertson or Gabriel Saliba, and then I would move Darwin to Havertz. And then that would just give you a really strong team there. And then moving forward, I would use free transfers to potentially move out Nkunku next week. So therefore, for a -4, that team really starts to look pretty solid across all of the positions. So I asked AI what was the recommended transfer for this team, and it did recommend Darwin to Havertz, given the money in the bank. And that moves the team rating from 85% to 90% AI team rating over the next 5 game weeks. So right now, it feels like it's certainly not a need to wildcard, especially given the international break next week, and obviously the challenges that can come with that as well. This was the next team that was sent to me when we're looking at the Should I Wildcard series for this week. And again, if you look through the team, Flecken in goal, don't see any issues there. Alexander-Arnold, certainly no issues there. Very, very attacking, got 1 clean sheet out of 2. Gabriel, 2 clean sheets in 2 weeks. Hall is a minutes risk at the moment and has not played both game weeks. So I think he played 69 minutes in game week 1 and 21 minutes in game week 2. So it's certainly a rotation risk at the moment, and I can see why there's some concerns there. Bruno Fernandes hasn't actually returned in either week at the moment, but missed two really big chances in game week 1. And if he'd have scored those, he's still on penalties. If he'd scored those, he'd have been 12 points ahead. And therefore, he wouldn't even be a question right now. It's just that he's missed those chances, and therefore, I can understand the concern. But if he was in my team, he's certainly not a headache. He's 90 minutes, man. He's on penalties. There's routes to goals there. I wouldn't be worried right now. Kudus, again, another 90-minute man, 90-minute game week 1, 87 minutes in game week 2. He's got a 0.4 expected goal involvement at the moment. So again, at that sort of numbers, realistically, a 1 in 3 games he will get a return. So certainly not a concern at this stage. Obviously, he's a very differential pick. There's not a lot of them on here, and I can understand why that was picked. And Jacob Murphy looked really, really good pre-season. Looked like he was going to be nailed on for minutes. But again, he's got 29 minutes in game week 1, 57 minutes in game week 2. Got a 0.02 expected goal involvement across those 2 games. So he would certainly be a concern in the team at the moment, given the minutes risk. And then Diogo Jota, looking great up front, scored goals, no issues with him in the team as well. And then up front, you've got Isak, Haaland and Muniz. No issues here. They all look like good players. Isak got an assist in game week 1. So, he predicted to get really good points over the coming weeks. Haaland has great fixtures, has just come off a hat-trick. And Muniz and Fulham have really good fixtures moving forward. So right now, that front line looks really, really strong. And then on the bench, you've got Jorgensen, a 4.0 goalkeeper who's not playing at the moment, which seems to be standard across most teams that I've seen across the internet. Nkunku, we talked about that in the last video. Yes, he's a bit of a challenge. Yes, there's a rotation risk there. He's a minutes risk. So right now he's a challenge in the team. Barco, again, spoke about in the same. Lots of people have this Nkunku, Barco, Solanke challenge from the last 2 weeks. And then Johnson in defence, who got an assist in the last game. So where are the problems in this team? You've got the 2 Newcastle players in Hall and Murphy, and then you've got Nkunku. So realistically, looking at that team, there's only really 3 players that need changing. And so can you fix this? You don't need to move them all each week. You could bring in Johnson for Hall, for example. But realistically, that midfield, you do need a bit of fixing there. So when I asked AI, they recommended moving Murphy to Eze. And that moves the team rating from 83% to 89% AI rating on there. And then if I changed the parameters and said, hey, what if I took a -4, it recommended moving Kudus to Eze and then Nkunku to Bailey. So using the money a little bit more spread out, taking into consideration that Aston Villa have a really good run of fixtures at the moment, and Bailey's looking really attacking despite not having any returns at the moment. And the same with Eze, no returns at the moment, but numbers underneath behind that look really, really strong. So would I have wildcarded this team? No. Now I know this person has already wildcarded, so let's have a look at what the option looks like if there is a wildcard. Okay, so let's look at a wildcard team for those that have hit the button this week. First and foremost, when I think about wildcarding, there's a couple of things that I take into consideration. One, do it very, very early in the week so that I can catch price rises for that as well. The next part is actually just be very careful when making those transfers that you're not selling a player out of your team and then buying him back when he's 0.1 more. And then also on the same basis, not buying him a player before their price drops. So wait, if you know that a player's price is going to drop, don't have him in your team and then just buy them at the cheaper price as well. The other things to consider, especially this season, is do you have transfers that can roll over? So for example, you could be on 2 free transfers this week if you didn't use one in game 1. That would roll over to next week, and therefore you'd have a good starting point if something did happen. For game week 3 specifically, there is an international break coming up after game week 3. So there are potential injury risks of teams, people going away. So certainly something you need to consider. And then also for any wild card is just looking at when are those fixture swings. thinking about the big teams that you're going to go after, your Arsenal's, Man City, Liverpool, when do their teams swings fixture? Sorry, I'll take that back. When do their fixtures swing in their favour? So, for example, Arsenal have a good game this week at home to Brighton, but for game weeks 4 and for game weeks 5, they're away to Tottenham and Man City. So, not an ideal time to be bringing Arsenal players in, but after that, they've got some really good fixtures. So, for me, if I'm looking at Arsenal players, bringing them in from game week 6 onwards looks like a good option. And similarly with Man City, they've got a really couple of good games coming up, and then they've got in game week 5 and game week 6 they've got Arsenal and then Newcastle, which are again a couple of tough fixtures on there as well. So really just got to start to think about, with those core players that you're going to put in your team, what do the fixtures look like over the next 5 to 6 weeks, and in terms of making that selection. So let's actually look at the AI Wildcard team. And this is actually put together by Fantasy Football Hub, a subscription service that I use. And they've got Martinez in goal, so Aston Villa have a really good run of fixtures coming up now after just playing Arsenal away. You've then got Gabriel, Robertson and Trent Alexander, so they're doubling up on Liverpool defence at the moment. So while they've got Man United away this week, they've got some really good fixtures over the next 4 to 5 transfer. And then tripling up on Liverpool with Mo Salah. And as you'll notice, that this is a no Haaland draft according to the data on that as well. But that midfield has got Salah, Palmer, Saka, Eze and Semenyo. So it looks like a really, really strong team. Semenyo feels like an outside pick, but actually if you look underneath at the data from Semenyo, he's got the highest amount of shots so far across the 2 game weeks. So he's certainly putting himself in a position to be able to take those shots, and AI is predicting that he's going to get some points off the back of that as well. So, and of course Everton away. Everton have looked really shaky at the back at the moment, so it could be a really good week to bring him in as a differential. And then up front they've got Isak and João Pedro. Now Isak has only got 1 assist so far across the 2 games, but again his data looks good, the fixtures look good moving forward. And João Pedro just now enables that midfield to be so strong. He's nailed on. He's on penalties. He's got good minutes at the moment. So, and Brighton are looking really attacking moving forward. So while that first game week against Arsenal away isn't great for João Pedro, after that they've got Ipswich at home, Nottingham Forest at home. So a couple of really good fixtures there, and which is why he's been put in his team. Now AI doesn't like a bench. It's got Fabianski in goal, who obviously doesn't play. Then it's got Greaves, O'Shea and Cannon, so 2 4.0s and a 4.5 on that bench. So not a lot of cover if there's any injuries here. But this is their predicted best game week 3 wildcard for the next 5 weeks. But let me know, guys, if you had this team, if you'd hit the wildcard button, is this the team that you would pick? Who's missing? Would you go for Haaland? Would you go for Salah and Haaland and then compromise elsewhere in the team? Let me know in the comments below. And lastly, guys, we're going to start to look at my team and what my thoughts are going into the Game Week 3 transfer deadline. In goal, I've got Flecken. So while he's got no clean sheets so far this season, this is the first time playing Southampton at home that I'm really hoping for that first clean sheet of the season for Brentford. Then in defence, I've got Saliba, Gabriel and Vardiol. And Saliba, Gabriel, home to Brighton, who have looked really good going forward at the moment, but just that Arsenal defence has been so strong over the last season. I can really potentially hope for a clean sheet here. They got one against Aston Villa, which I wasn't expecting, so if they don't get one here, I still would have got 2 clean sheets out of the first 3, so still I'm okay with them in my team. And then Gavardiol at away to West Ham. Again, West Ham, new manager, looking good going forward, but Man City are another elite defence. So really, really happy with that premium defence for this week. In midfield, moving into the midfield, I've got Saka at home to Brighton, who's my vice-captain this week. Brighton look really good going forward, and while they have not conceded many goals at the moment, they've historically been quite weak at the back, so hopefully some attacking returns there for Saka. He's been so consistent so far this season. Next up is Salah. As I mentioned, got really in the captaincy part of the stream. he's got a really good record against Manchester United, so I'm really hoping that he can continue that this season, even though it looks like a trickier fixture on paper. Next up, I've got Gordon at home to Tottenham. Newcastle have predominantly been a much better team at home, and Gordon has statistics last year were much better at home than they were away. Now, he did get an away goal last week, so hopefully he does well against a Tottenham defence that does like to leak goals on a regular basis. Next up is actually my benching headache, Bailey, who is away to Leicester this week. So against the promoted side, he's currently in the team, and the decision is between him and Mateta, who's on my bench, who's got Chelsea away. So just based on fixtures alone, I've picked Bailey. The reason he's there is that Aston Villa have some amazing fixtures moving forward, and if I'm not going to play him now against a promoted side, then there's no point in having him in my team. And then next up, I've got Eze, who I'm giving another chance after 2 weeks of being so close to scoring points and not actually getting any points. I'm hoping that he can come good this week as well. And then up front, I've got Isak at home to Tottenham. Again, talking about their leaky defence, really hoping that he can shine. And then Muniz, who Fulham start their really good run of fixtures, and he is away to Ipswich, who obviously just got spanked by Man City last week. And then on the bench, Valdemarsson in goal, back up for Flecken. Mateta as my first sub, who's got Chelsea away. Harwood Bellis, who's got Brentford away. And then I've got Johnson, who is at home to Fulham. So overall, guys, really, really happy with the team for this week. No real concerns there or minutes risks. My only really thought process is, do I start with Mateta, who I believe Chelsea have a weak defence at the moment, conceding 2 against Wolves last week and 2 the week before against Man City, or do I go with Bailey, who's against a newly promoted side? And at the moment, as it stands, it is Bailey. But let me know, guys, what do you think of my team? How would you, who would you pick? Would you have Bailey or Mateta in your starting lineup for this week? So like I did in Game Week 2, I really actually liked looking back at my options and my decisions and working out whether I'd made the right one, something that I've not done in previous seasons. So first, again, my option this week, an AI recommended transfer, is actually just to roll my transfer. Having 2 free transfers, especially now with price changes happening 0.1s up and down, I don't have any money in the bank. So having 2 free transfers just gives me options to move. There's no real downside to this at the moment because I don't have any minutes risks in my team. So unless there's a last minute leak where someone tells me that one of my players isn't going to play, then I might look at an alternative option. But right now, I will just roll my transfer moving into Game Week 4. My second option, again, is really just my benching headache, moving Bailey out for Mateta. Chelsea do look really shaky at the back, and Mateta's just coming back into the team. He was in really good form during the Olympics, and hoping that he can pick that up. And then also the cons there is that midfielders have more routes to points, so there's more chance of Bailey keeping a clean sheet and to getting that extra point if either of them blank. So right now, Bailey is a bigger differential in the team as well. Both of them are less than 5% owned, so if either of them get points, it's going to really boost my rankings for the week. And then my third and final option was to move Saliba to Robertson and actually use my free transfer. Now what this does is this allows me to free up an Arsenal spot for potentially bringing in Havertz after the tougher fixtures in the future. The challenge is that Liverpool actually have a worse fixture this week with Manchester United away as opposed to Arsenal having Brighton at home. But they have better future fixtures moving forward. So right now, that's not an option for me. It's certainly one I'm considering for next week as part of my 2 free transfers. But let me know, guys, if you had these 3 options, which one would you choose? Lastly, guys, just a big thank you again for watching FPL Fanzone. If you've got this far into the video, and I know this is a slightly longer one because I didn't have any content earlier in the week, please don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you can get updates of when the future videos are coming live, and leave any comments in the questions below. Any feedback on the videos, any things you'd like me to cover, any questions, I will come back to the comments as much as I can. Wishing you all a great game week and a green arrow, and I'll see you all in the next episode.